ourselves against the letters of our name. And so I did a quick written bit where I put, oh, perhaps resilient and a risk taker. And those who know me, I think hopefully you'll know me as a disruptor, but taking safe risk. And I think that kind of fits a bit with what we're talking about today. Personal vision can kind of have a risk to it, but actually it can be a life giver. What did I have next to A? I had active and authentic. Again, I think those of you who know me, I think hopefully you describe me as authentic. Somebody met my daughter recently, and they'd met me, they didn't realize that we were connected. And she said, I think you're talking about my mum. And they were like, is your mum Rachel Slough? So our authenticity, isn't it, says something about who we are. And I think something about personal vision is about being authentic, living the life that you want to live. We often, I hear people say, oh, do you want me to fill this in as myself at work or myself outside of work? And that's what this whole summit is about. To be happy and successful, we need to be authentic and active in progressing that. What did I have against my C's? I had creative, curious. I think if there's anything people should be as we look at a new year, it's actually to be curious. If you're based in the UK, the whole stuff about the post office that's all kicking off has all been about people's lack of real curiosity to really ask good questions. And I think our personal vision, we have to be curious about what the future looks like. You know, what do we want to do and explore? And what I got against H, hopeful. I think I'm generally a hopeful person. I tend to kind of see the good in things and hopeful of good outcomes, even when perhaps we can't see that. So I'm hopeful today that you will be inspired and encouraged. And that stands for my E, being an encourager. I hope that you'll be encouraged to really think about your own kind of personal vision and to think about this year ahead. And my L really is liberty. I love freedom. It's a big value of mine, freedom to do the things I want to do. And I don't know how that fits with you, but I hope that today's hour's webinar will help you kind of just think about freedom. There's great freedom in creating your personal vision. And people who are free, you know, we talk about what success looked like. My son will probably tell you it's something to do with having the next BMW that he wants. But we know that success is much more than that, isn't there? Something about being happy and content. Somebody challenged me the other day and thought that content was a bit of a boring word. And I said, actually, I thought it gave us a great place to which we can work from. And when we're content, we are not striving for other stuff. So I don't know what your hopes are for today, but I really hope that you want to be challenged, I think, to perhaps take some risks this year. Apparently, this is the most depressing Monday of the entire year. Friday was Quitters Friday, when everyone gives up on dry January or whatever. I mean, I haven't even attempted dry January. I've just gone for dry Monday to Thursday because that's realistic for me. So definitely wasn't a dry weekend, but apparently today is the most depressing Monday. So I hope that is not the case for you. But I think there's a lot to be said about people setting unrealistic challenges for themselves and not being where they want to be and being very dissatisfied with that, but not being very proactive about where they want to be. And there's a lot of talk about managing your time more effectively. But I want to encourage us. It's a bit more about the managing our time. You know, we live in a world where we have more time-saving gadgets than any generation before us. But I think if you're honest, and certainly if I'm honest, we are the biggest complainers of not having enough time. Anybody give a hands up for that? Is that true? Do you complain? I do not have enough time. Yes. It's a real challenge, isn't it? And I just want to show you why it's a challenge. I'm just going to share my screen for a second. Here we go. Hopefully you can see all of this. If you want to learn about time management, which is not what I'm here to talk to you about, then you will see there's plenty of room to find stuff on Google. There's plenty of resources. And if you want to go to Amazon and buy yourself a book about time management, then there's 100,000 books to choose from to start thinking about how do you want to manage your time. And so I really want to encourage you today is I don't want you to be managing your time. I want you to be managing your life. And when you think and vision for your own life, then I want to guarantee you that you will manage your time more effectively. And I think one of our challenges about time at the moment is we have too many choices for what we want to do with our time. And as a result, we kind of lose the plot a bit. And perhaps we're just too busy. And so I want, before we kind of talk about, well, what might that look like? I want to show you this lovely quote. Those who know me well know I'm a big fan of Brené Brown, but I love this quote of hers. And I just want to encourage you just to, hopefully you can read it. I've minimized the screen here. Or have a read through, just pause. I just want you just to have a read through, read it once, and then read it through again, and just notice any word that really strikes you. But just take a moment to have a read. Right, I'll just stop sharing for a moment. It's quite a powerful quote, I think, and one or two of I know we've had a coaching relationship together, and others have met me through courses and stuff, but we often talk about time and where time goes and how people steal our time, how we feel frustrated that we don't have time for the things that we really want to have time for. I frequently hear people say, oh, I haven't got, I used to do this, but I don't have any time for it now. And I think COVID in some ways helped us pause to realize that we could clear our diary. And when we're forced to, it was easy to just stop. I saw a lot of people talk about the quality of their family time because they weren't racing from one activity to the other. Some people would say even team meetings improved because people just took time to catch up with each other in a way that they didn't normally. But I think that the reality is we live, say, in a world where everybody expects a piece of our time, and they expect our time to be available whenever it should be available. And I don't see people being very intentional in the use of their time. And so I hear a lot of people say, I don't have time for those things anymore. And I think what's happened really is we've lost sight of where are the things that we really love doing? What do we want to do? What life do we want to live? And if you want just tips on time management, then yeah, go hunt, go do all this. There's plenty there for you. But I want to be suggesting today, if I can help you think about your own personal vision and thinking about how you want 2024 to look and beyond that, then actually you'll be more effective in the use of your time, because then we're able to say no a bit more easily. We're able to let go of some of the stuff that we actually don't really want to do. And people can see that. And I think that's where I want us to get to today. I don't know if you know this, that in the Greek, there are two words for time. We've got the chronological, chronos, the time that we measure, the time that's by the clock. We're on this line call for, 450 plus minutes. That's the time. That's our kind of cut-off point. But the Greeks also have the lovely word kairos. And those are for those kind of magical moments in time. You might even have kairos moments today when you look out your window and you see a beautiful view, or as I look down and I see my sleeping puppy, I go, oh, that's a beautiful moment. There are times when we just know that they're magical times. And I think in our busy world, we're in danger of losing our kairos moments, those moments where we just know that they sit with us in a deep way of not just contentment, but happiness. They are the things. And I think that we can have kairos moments daily. I think it's a real challenge to find them. But I want us to kind of be clear that actually when we live our lives more intentionally with a bit more of a vision about where we want to be and how we want to spend our time, then we'll also have more kairos moments. We'll be more alert to them, more awake to see them and see the power of them. And I think it is amazing that, say, there are these two lovely words of those times that are easy just to measure. How have you spent your time today versus your kairos moments? Those just moments of pause. perhaps just reading Brené Brown's sentences there just about we're too busy. Perhaps there's a time to just stop and say, actually, how can I just take time today to stop, pause, and appreciate what is going on? I think it's the power of gratitude. And there's lots spoken about the fact that we're not grateful enough. We need to show more gratitude and to be conscious of our days and to be grateful for the things we have. What am I grateful today? I'm grateful. I don't know where you are in the UK, and not everybody's in the UK, but the beautiful sunshine. What a beautiful day. I'm grateful for just the light and the power that just sunshine, the warmth that brings, isn't it, is amazing. And so I want to encourage you when you leave this call today to think, actually, what might be, if you could get to bed tonight and think, actually, what were my Kairos moments? Those moments that just held special meaning. What might they be? Because I guarantee that you'll have them. But we need to be awake and alert and wanting to have them and just going, oh, thank God my day's over. I spoke to somebody last week just about where they're at in their life. And they just said, I just look forward to going to bed, knowing that I'm then getting up and I just start my day again, because I don't really know what else to do with my time. So I just look forward to going to bed, and then the next day is the next day and whatever that brings. And I just kind of wanted to encourage them, but there's just much more to have than that. We don't need to live a life that's like that. But I think a lot of people do. They just kind of exist and they turn up, they do what they need to do, and that's okay. But when we talk about happiness, I don't really think it ticks a box for that. We want to do more than that. We don't want to just exist. And I want to encourage you, when you are intentional about the life you want to live, you will inspire others too. But you will also be much more alert to people who have not given any thought to how they want to live their life. So I warn you, it comes with a frustration warning triangle of you begin to be more intentional about how you want to live your life. You will be much more alert to people who are just existing. So no apology for that, but I'm warning you that that will be one of those things that might just happen. So where do I want you to get to think about today? I'm just going to share my screen again, as I think this is our reality. We need to get from, oh, hang on, why is that not changing slides? Should do, there we go. Are you a human doing or a human being? I want to encourage you today to think about, is it time to switch? Are you just doing stuff? Are you doing what's expected of you? Are you just doing the things that you need to do? But I want today to really encourage you to think about, what does it mean to be a human being? I want you to use your being to make your doing much more effective and impactful, so that when you're busy doing the stuff you're doing, it has meaning for you and helps you to be authentic, to be real, to be the real human being that you are. And I think our challenges is that we can just be busy doing, as that Brené Brown quote says, we're so busy doing what we do that we aren't pausing to take time. So I guess that is probably the first thing I want to challenge you to think about. Are you human doing or a human being? Being yourself, thinking about the things that you want to do and where you might want to be. We don't find contentment and happiness just in doing stuff. We have to be intentional, and it has to connect with us in doing that. The lovely Andrea, who's organising this summit, she and I met through our very mutual, very dear friend and mentor and contact, Richard Fox, who sadly died in July. But he was passionate about living a purposeful life. And he had spent many years in consultancy and doing accountancy. And he often used to describe that he was busy doing what he was good at, accountancy. He worked for one of the major accountancy firms in the UK. But actually, it wasn't really who he wanted to be. And he wasn't really doing what brought him any life. And he spent quite a bit of time going on a journey about thinking about what a purposeful life looks like. And he wrote a book, Creating a Purposeful Life. And I have 1 or 2 copies to give away to anybody who's quick enough to email me after this talk, I will happily send you a copy. But it's a good starting point to start thinking about what does it mean to lead a purposeful life. And Richard certainly was very inspirational to many, but particularly to myself and Andrea, and holds and continues to hold a very special place in our hearts. So I'm going to show you a model that he used. Some of you may have seen this before if you've been on my courses, but this is a model that we use for helping people think about purpose, whether that's for personal use, for team use, or organization use. It's a model that Richard created. And I think it's probably one of the most helpful models I see for helping just to break down what does it mean to create our personal vision. And so here it is. It is called the Purpose Tree. And it starts with, and you may be surprised at this, it starts with our mission. Some people think our purpose starts with our vision, but unless we know who we want to be, our mission in effect, then we may not have any vision for what that looks like when we get there. And so our first point, and this is where you might want a pen and paper, and we'll have a resource that we can send you with some questions around this model to help you think it through. But it starts with our mission. Who do you want to be? You know, when I first read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I was doing my first management diploma course in the late 80s. And this was one of the reading books. It was a relatively new book at that point. And I was reading his 7 habits all through the chapters. And one of his key habits is to begin with the end in mind. And he asked in his book for you to think about your eulogy. What do you want people to say about you at the end of your life, whenever that might be? What would you like people to say? What's your legacy? And at kind of 22 or whatever age I was, I thought it was quite depressing actually to think about my funeral. It wasn't something that I kind of really wanted to think about. But over the years, and I would say that Stephen Covey's 7 Habits is a lifelong read. It is not an overnight reading. It is a book to accompany through your life. That what he was really getting at, this habit of begin with the end in mind, whether that's looking today on Monday to think, how do I want to be feeling by Friday? What do I want to achieve this week? Is that we start with purpose. We have a clear purpose. And I can't say at 22 I'd got that sussed out. What did I want people to say about me at my funeral? But having lost both my parents in recent years, having lost friends before their time, having lost my brother-in-law completely unexpectedly after his 50th birthday, I certainly began to think a lot more about what do I want my life to be? What do I want people to say about me as a person, about what I've done, about what are the things that are important. So our mission is really important. Who do we want to be? And I encourage you to just think about some words that might describe you. A bit like Andrea's exercise she gave this morning, to write your name and alongside your initials, your letters, to think of words that might describe you as a person. But our mission is, who do we want to be? And I think for me, even before I was married, before I had a family, all of those things played into it. So it's evolved and changed over time. I knew that I wanted to be authentic. I knew that I wanted freedom to do the things that I love to do. We'd been given a lot of freedom as children. I'm one of 4 kids, and one of the things we often comment on is our parents gave us a lot of freedom to just try stuff out and to take risks. And so that's always been part of my life. I've always wanted freedom and to do things to a certain extent my way, which is perhaps why I now run my own consultancy. But who do you want to be? And I encourage you to just think about that, because then we get to the lovely second point here, which is our vision. What will we see? If we know who we want to be, then we'll start thinking about our vision. What will we see when we get there? What's that life going to look like? If you've got a mission, maybe just for this year, if you can't think about 3 or 5 years, and I encourage people to have a 3-year vision plan, to start thinking about what will you see as a result of that. If you know who you want to be, then it becomes easier to have a vision for what you'll see when you get there. What will you see? What's that going to look like? And I guess when I talk about freedom, wanting freedom in my work, I didn't have a big thing about wanting my own consultancy. My life's just panned out to have that opportunity, but it's given me the freedom. And it gives me the freedom to say no to some stuff. It gives me freedom to do some of the work that I enjoy doing. And when I think about vision, what will I see if I value freedom? It's a week like this where I'm working virtually and, dare I say it, looking after my mother-in-law for a week. But it gives us freedom to make choices. All of our stuff is underlined by our values and our behaviors. So think clearly, who do you want to be? What's your mission? What are you going to see when you get there? Because then that's when we have the strategy. That's when we start planning. So if these are the things I want to be, this is what I want to see, then what's the plan? What's the plan? What am I going to do about it? Because where do we spend most of our time? We spend most of our time here at the bottom doing stuff, thinking about the roles we have. You might have multiple roles. I have a role as a wife, as a mother, as a business owner, as a sister. I have various roles in my life and I have various tasks and hopefully get the outcomes that I want from a result of that. But most people spend their life living on the bottom line here, doing the roles that are just required of them, doing the stuff. And perhaps some of those outcomes are what they want, but they may not always be, and they may not be very intentional. So the lovely thing about the purpose tree is it gives us a chance to break stuff down, to start thinking about, okay, so who do I want to be? And I'd encourage you, this can take quite a bit of time, this place here, mission, thinking about being. Who do we want to be? What are we going to see when we get there? But I can promise you, when we do this work around up here, and if you're a visual person, draw a picture, have an idea of what that might look like. I try and do my personal vision every 3 to 5 years, and I'm probably just about to start a new one. My company's now 5 years old, and the next 5 years are probably quite a critical time for me to start thinking about what's my vision for the next 5 years. So that actually, when I spend time here planning stuff, I know what I need to plan for, and when I'm busy doing just the stuff down here that we do, I know that it fits with where I want to be. So I'm going to just stop sharing for a second. There we go. Fantastic. I don't know whether you've ever done any of this stuff before, or whether, say, you're a visual person or you're not. It might be just something that you write in terms of words. I don't know if anybody's got any questions so far or any comment they'd like to make. So there's only a few of us, so there's opportunity for you to ask something or make a comment if you want to. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
I think it sounds like a really good idea. It's asking yourself the right questions. I know you've shouted them out there, Rachel, but in fact, when you're starting with a blank piece of paper, that's really difficult to do. I think
it is.
I'm sitting here thinking I'm not sure where to start with that.
You know what, Giles, I'm going to give you some kind of tips and ideas for starting that. And I agree it's difficult. Yeah. And so sometimes I say to people, just have a blank sheet of paper and write down some words. Like I said to you, one of the things for me is freedom. I've always valued freedom. Okay. And therefore kind of it's probably why I've chosen jobs where not about status for me, but where I had a choice about how my role worked out or the impact I had as a leader. It's probably why I chose a startup company and grew up through that, because it gave me a certain amount of freedom to be influential as well. So I don't think I'd ever have just gone into big corporate, because that we could have done it, but I think Andrew will probably agree with some of that. There's a limit to how long you want to be in the corporate sector, if you value freedom and a chance to say stuff. To say some people, I haven't got it to hand. I should have shown you actually, but I showed someone recently. I was leading a staff retreat on well-being, and I showed my picture of 10 years ago. And the picture I had for my personal vision, I was just about to start my own business, and we were moving out of London. There were lots of kind of changes in our family life. But I'd put things down as possibles. And one of those was a convertible car. And not that was that important to me, but I like the freedom of that. Does that make sense? If I love
Yes.
freedom, I love putting the roof down and playing my music, and not because I have a big thing about convertibles, but I just love the freedom of that. And yes, I have one, and I love it for exactly that. So and it's an old one. I don't have anything about a flash new one or anything like that, but it's a little bit that kind of symbolizes that freedom for me. And yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think sometimes it's a bit of fun to play around with it. What is that? I think I've got sunshine. I love the sunshine. So it doesn't surprise you that some of my work means that I work in the United Arab Emirates, because that gives me the freedom to enjoy the sunshine too. And those kind of things. So I know some of the choices I make now are definitely connected to the things that I value, that are important to me. And you and I have had conversations too, haven't we, Giles, about some of the things that are important to you about looking after your team, caring for people. And if I remember right, you're a sailor.
Yes.
Yes. So there must be something. There's going to be a boat on there somewhere.
There is. Yeah. Might need to win the lottery to actually get the boat, but never mind. Details.
Exactly. Details. So dream it, Giles. Dream it. I just say there's definitely a boat on there. Wind in your sails. I don't know, something about that. That's must be something connected to living the life you want. It's got to feel something like being on the water.
Indeed.
I reckon. Yeah. Tracy, you've put a lovely quote here. You said this was your vicar at your church yesterday. How we spend our days is how we spend our lives. Wow. Yeah. Right, we can lose sight of the most important things because we get caught up in just the doing. That is definitely true. Yeah, like that. Stepping back's hard, isn't it? How do we hit pause in the life that we live at the moment? Really tricky. Really tricky.
If I may ask, this is literally what you just said, and you led with that. How do we go from a human doing to human being? So I literally heard this phrase. This is the third time in 3 days I hear this.
Wow.
So and like I definitely 100% need it. My question is, do you have any good tips on how to check myself effectively on this?
Yeah, I think some of it will come in a moment, even when I've got just a very quick exercise. I'm going to encourage people to think about that. But I think that it is being much more aware, and I think there'll be other speakers who will speak really well on this week, on this summit, but about that intuition, isn't it, of that sense of your feel where you go, this doesn't sit come. I know that I am just responding or reacting to stuff. I don't feel like I have a lot of choice in this. I'm not. We can have days like that where we go, right, I'm not going to do that again tomorrow. But I think we are very conscious of that. I had a coachee who I met up with just recently, who's just resigned from his job, and he said, "You don't look surprised, Rachel." I said, "Well, you didn't tell me you were going to resign from your job. However, you did tell me you were really unhappy about the direction of some stuff that was happening. And I know the things that are most important to you." He's really tied into this personal vision stuff. And it just went against his vision for his future, for his job, the direction the company's going, the direction that his boss was behaving, his behaviors and values were just really, he would say he felt really uncomfortable for about a month of just thinking, I'm just turning up and doing stuff, but there's no passion, there's no creativity, there's nothing that's bringing out the best in me. I am functioning. And just really aware of that. And I think it's that bit of checking in sometimes with ourselves, whether that's daily or weekly. How do I rate my week? How do I feel? What are the things that have given me energy? Has anything given me energy? And what
that
are the
helps.
things
Thank you.
that have drained me? How do we know this stuff? Oh, I see Diana's joined us. Nice to see you, Diana. Andrea, a colleague from Prague.
Hello. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Diana. But I think it takes time. It's what I love about Stephen Covey's book. I find people who say they tried to read the 7 Habits and they give up, and I go, it is a lifelong read. The habits are brilliant, and nobody has come up with anything better. But we have to almost yearly step into that. What does that look like for me to begin with the end in mind? How do I want my year to look like? If I encourage you all, if you put this date in your diary for 2025, you know, 15th of January, as you look back, what are the things you want to look back on? You know, what does that look like for you? And I totally see, Giles, it can be really hard to imagine that. I totally get that. And that's why sometimes say we have to start off somewhere small. I'll show you, I'm just going to share my screen again, because this is something, you know, when we live our lives intentionally, when we're clear about where we want to be and what we want to do, then others around us will see that, they'll know that, and they'll kind of say, really, you're doing that? Does that fit with what you want to do? We need to have others around us who have an understanding of the things that we value and where we want to be, and they'll be the people who encourage us. And it's not an easy task, this one, but to write a personal kind of mission statement, organizations find it hard to do, but to find one for yourself can be really hard. But I had a friend who gave me this just recently. Let me, hopefully the screen's going to work. No, it's not. Here we go. This hangs in my office, and it says, live your life with love, grace, and gratitude. And a very good friend of mine gave this to me, and she said, I feel it sums up a bit, Rachel, how I see you live your life. And I kind of think, actually, if I had my personal mission statement, it'd certainly be something around being gracious. I value people being gracious, to give people opportunity to live and to learn and to move forward, and gratitude, to be grateful. Am I always grateful? Absolutely not. But I have learned to practice that gratitude can be a wonderfully way in which we pause, we reflect on things around us, we help others to do that, and it can be very grounding. And who doesn't, I hope, not want to live your life with love? But I had someone recently, again, someone I was working with on their personal vision, who said maybe their statement would be to be loved and supported, and to support and love others. And this was someone who'd spent a lot of their life supporting others and never really felt supported for themselves. And so that was just a little minor change, to be supported and loved, and to support and love. And that was kind of her statement. And I think it worked really well in just making that tiny switch. But this stuff is, it is hard. And I think that's why lots of people don't do it. I was at a conference for senior to middle management leaders. There were 250. We were talking about, are you kind of managing your life or managing your time? It was exactly this topic. And I asked everybody if anyone had ever done anything about their own personal vision. And not a single person put their hand up. 250 leaders, not a single person. And so when I then said, who's looking forward to Christmas, or worried that you're going to be exhausted and tired and whether you're going to have the energy for Christmas, actually probably almost 50% put their hand up. And this is why I think it's so important. If we're just doing, we're just human doers, doing what's expected of us, doing what we think everybody wants from us, there's a danger that we are slowly kind of dying, really, because we're not living the life that we want to live. And you know, how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we do it well? I appreciate is a real challenge. So how do we do that? Giles, I think you asked, and Eva, you were asking a bit about that. You'll have the slides, and we'll have some of the resources that might help you think about this. I'm always happy to have a conversation with people, but I think it starts here. What is your identity and purpose? Your mission, the be? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be known for? Remembered for? What might your legacy be? You know, I think those things are important. You know, being available, being a good friend, those things are important to me. But I've also learned to know when I need to say no, when I need to manage my own energy, when I need to be careful of just where that might be pulled further than it needs to be. But I think we start with identity and purpose. What's your mission? Who do you want to be? What do you want? And if you're not sure, ask other people. You know, what if I ask you to describe me? How would you describe me? What do you see? Other people might help you think about that. if you're not sure about legacy, I absolutely, it might sound a bit weird, but I absolutely love reading obituaries. I love reading the stuff in the, I get a daily paper on my iPad, and I don't read it every day, but I pretty much always read the obituary stuff. I'm always fascinated in how people have lived their life and what's influenced them. And so maybe you just need a tiny bit of inspirement. Maybe you need to just be inspired by reading a good autobiography or something. What has inspired people? Giles, you're a sailor. I love Ellen MacArthur. I was always very interested in what inspired her to do her first big sailing trip. So, maybe you need to start in small ways to be thinking about what it is that you admire about other people. And maybe that will help. Mm-hmm. And then we move towards your values and beliefs. What do you believe about life? What are your beliefs about life? Are we just here for this and look after ourselves and nothing else? Do we believe in anything of any higher power? Are we connected spiritually to anything else? That can be an important factor for people. What are the things that do you believe are here to make any impact or not? Are you here just to live the life you want to live? Plenty of people do that. What are the most important values to you? And I encourage people to say, you don't need a long list of values, but I think that you can often whittle them down to at least three really important values that might link to other stuff. Is to say, I like freedom, but that probably links to being consulted. It probably links to being a part of a team, working with others. There's a freedom in discussion and being involved with other people. So I kind of really encourage think about what are your most important values, and what are the things that are important to you. As I say, you can drop me an email and I'll send you a copy of Richard's book, and that's got a few exercises in it too. And then we've got, what are your unique gifts and talents? What do you do especially well? I think, Andrea, this morning you encouraged everyone to think of themselves as a real star. And I know that people find that really hard to do. But what do you do especially well? What gives you energy? What do others tell you? If you can't say it about yourself, what do others tell you about you? What are your unique gifts and talents? We all bring certain things to the table, and we need to be encouraged in those. And if you're not sure what they are, I bet you others will be able to tell you around you. Ask others around you, because then that should give you a bit more about what does this then tell you about doing what I should be doing to live more purposefully. Spending a bit of time on these things can then help you think about, am I doing the things I want to? Am I working somewhere where it goes against my beliefs, my values? Am I using my unique talents? The lovely Strengths Finders tool that was, it's been around now for many years, but it was done by Gallup. And one of the things they found out in their research was that we need to be using our strengths. 70% of our work time should be using our strengths for us to really thrive and to flourish. And when we are not using our strengths, we will not be thriving and flourishing as much as we can. And I see a lot of people who do a really good job, but they're not really thriving. They're not doing what they do best. And they kind of know that, and they exist and spend a lot of time caught up just doing. So this is that challenge of, are you being? Are you a human being? And what are the things that you love to do? And if this is a bit complicated, then maybe this is a simpler exercise. Everyone talks about the Duracell bunny. We're not all Duracell bunnies, but I want to encourage you to think about, what are your energy givers and your energy takers? And if it's hard to start anywhere, then I'd encourage you that this is a real simple exercise to do at the end of a day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month. I work quite often with people who are at the end of their tether, at the end of perhaps a long career, or on the edge of burnout. And this is one of the things I sometimes say, if you can't think of anything else, or it's too hard to start thinking about personal vision, what are the things that give you life? What are the things that you love? What are the things that drain you? And we know what batteries are like when they're on their way out. They're just quite hard to get them to do anything. Yeah, so what are your energy givers and your energy takers? And this is just a real simple starter, that if it's too hard to think about these other things, going to really encourage you to think about this as a very simple exercise. So I'm going to just stop sharing again for a second. There we go. Fantastic. Nina, you've got a mood diary that helps me check in daily. Fantastic. I also have a line a day 5-year diary, help for seeing change every 5 years. Fantastic. Yeah, we have to be really intentional, and it's quite hard to do that because we get caught up just being busy, and then we go, oh, I haven't got time. And I have people who go, I haven't got time to think about this stuff, Rachel. But you know, when we do stuff intentionally, it really does guide us. It helps us make decisions about where we should be and where we shouldn't. And I've got a lot better at saying no to things. For some reason, I often find people think that I'm a very good potential person for a board or a trustee kind of position. I hate that stuff. I mean, yeah, I can do it. I don't like it. It's a real drain for me, because most of it's boring administrative stuff and ticking the boxes. And that's really, really not me. I got asked by a charity recently if I'd sit on their board. And I was like, look, you really don't want me on your board. Because honestly, what you think I'm bringing, I've obviously given you the wrong impression, but it's really not me. But I'll tell you what I will do. I'll give you 3 days of my time a year to facilitate your away days or whatever, however you want to use that, because that's where I can bring you life. And that's where I can challenge you to think differently. But if you want me every month to turn up for a meeting and read all the board notes and but probably, I don't know, a few years back, I might have said yes, because I thought it would look like a good thing. So I think, you know, we have to be mindful about, you know, where do we want to spend our time? What are the things that give us life, but help us bring life to others? You know, those of you who've worked with me hopefully will know, you know, I tend to be someone who's got quite a lot of energy. I like giving energy to stuff, and so you put me somewhere I can't do that, I'm not really much fun. I equally just like time on my own too, but you know, we have to be really careful. You know, what inspires you? Who's inspired you? Because when we start thinking about those things, they make all the difference. And I've probably worked on my personal vision over the last more than 30 years, but I think every time I renew it, every 3 to 5 years, I kind of fine hone it. But lots of the essential stuff hasn't changed. Lots of the things I still value. If I look at who do I want to be, it'll still be an absolute committed wife, devoted mother, and then a successful businesswoman. Because if becoming a successful businesswoman was the first priority in my life, I probably still wouldn't be married 32 years on, and my kids would probably probably have something to say about that too. But, you know, we have to, there are times when my life is crazy and my work is crazy, but I get back to a position where I say, what are the most important things? And so as I look at 2024, you know, I've already planned some of our holidays, some of the time off. I've put in some of the key things, like my brother's 60th birthday. I try and be really intentional. If I say these are the most important things to me, then you're going to see that. You're going to look at my diary and go, look, Rachel's prioritized her. Her kids' birthdays are in there, her wedding anniversary. You know, the things that I say are important are going to be there. I'm going to be measured by that. And I get a bit upset sometimes when friends of mine go, oh, you're probably too busy. And I kind of think, I don't ever want anybody to think I'm too busy to spend time with them. There might be times when I don't have a lot of time, but I certainly don't want to be someone who was always known as being too busy to make time. So I have to be careful sometimes. I don't look too busy. You know, so what inspires you? How will you do that? And does it work, personal vision? Absolutely, it works. And I see it with people I've helped create them. I see it in people I see who live life very intentionally, who definitely begin with the end in mind. Will it enable you to say no to stuff? Absolutely, it will. Will it frustrate you when I come across people who don't have one? Absolutely, because you'll be going, why are you doing that? Is it hard to do it? Yes. Does it take time and thought? Yes. Can you commit time to it and make a difference? Absolutely. Absolutely. Any further thoughts or questions before we start rounding up? Oh, there we are. Eva, mindful practices in the kitchen. Nice. That I will talk about in your talk tomorrow. Definitely physically and mentally turn energetic taking into giving for me. Fantastic. There you are. Eva can encourage you even more tomorrow on mindful practices in the kitchen. Fantastic. Any other thoughts, questions? Giles, you asked about where do you start? I showed you 2 slides on where you might start. Does that help people think, okay, that gives me something to start with?
Yeah, I think the way to do it is to take those basic questions. What are your energy takers and givers? And once you've got your head around that, it's then going on to the other things. So start simple. That might be my motto for life. Yeah, start with something you can do, because that is your facilitator into thinking about it on a wider basis, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. So it might mean you have to let go of some stuff, and that's hard as well sometimes, isn't it, for us to let go? You know, I was asked some time ago, someone said, is it really worth it? You know, give us an example, Rachel, in your life where it made all the difference that you had a personal vision. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you may have seen the article, but I think probably for me, the finest point in my life where it made a difference was my late father was due to have surgery for an aneurysm, so a fairly dangerous operation, but it certainly wasn't considered life-threatening. But it was certainly considered that he would take quite a long time to recover, to get back to fitness, etc. But the day before his operation, I was with 2 days before his operation, I was with a team looking at vision, and we were talking about vision, and we're using the purpose tree. And I was stressing about work and the things I needed to get done so I could support my mother while my father was recovering. And I was driving home, having done this visioning with this team, and I suddenly thought, you know what, Rachel, what are you doing? You're stressing about all the work you've got to do tomorrow, and tomorrow could be your dad's best day for quite a long time, and you're worrying about work and deadlines. And you know, I just had suddenly had a moment where I was absolutely stopped in my tracks, thinking, I've just spent an afternoon talking to a team about vision and talked my own personal vision about family being the most important thing. And yes, I want to be successful in business, but not at the cost of family. And I got home and I said to my husband, right, tomorrow we're going to just take the day off. We're just going to spend the day with my mum and my dad, and we're just going to, and he was like, what? You were talking about all the work you've got to do, Rachel. I said, I know, but you know, these are the most important things. And because he knows that, he knows what my vision is, we're quite aligned in our visions. He was like, you're absolutely right. That is exactly what we should do. And so the next day, I had an hour and a half walking around a beautiful sailing lake. You'll appreciate this, Giles. My father was a keen sailor. We went around a beautiful sailing lake and a beautiful spot. I had my daughter with me as well. She's due to go back to uni the next day. And we had the most wonderful day. And the next day, I took my father to hospital for his surgery. We were walking down to theatre, and one of the nurses said to him, gosh, it must be lovely being retired, sir. And he said, don't be ridiculous, woman. I've never been so busy in all my life, and this surgery is going to get in my way. And I was like, Dad, you can't say that's a bit rude. My father was 87, but he loved life. He was determined to live life. He lost his life in that operation. Not because the operation was not successful. The operation was successful, actually, but they unfortunately nicked his aorta in the process, and we had to have an inquest, and all sorts of horrible things followed that. But I knew that I had spent my last days with him, and I didn't know it was my last day with him, and I'll never regret that, because I followed my gut instinct on, actually, what are you doing? The most important thing is this. And actually, my dad, he lived the life he wanted to live. And in fact, he probably could have been quite a sick man following that surgery. It was awful for us. But in some ways, I kind of think he had lived the life he wanted to live. He'd had the most wonderful day walking around the lake. And he'd said to me, I worry I might not be able to do this again in the future. But actually, it impacted me. And so when people say, does personal vision make an impact? It absolutely does. Because it was horrible and it was painful. But also one of the lessons from my dad that we learned very early in our early years was, if there are lessons to be learnt, let them be learnt, but don't apportion blame. So when you think, where does my view about grace come from? There's a lot where I think, if we go out to blame people, we'll never develop relationship. And so I know for my dad, you know, when his poor surgeon rang me to say, I can't believe your father's died, because he went home, he didn't know that my father was bleeding out. And he rang, he was in tears, this poor guy. He'd never lost a patient before. And he said, I told your father I had 100% success rate. And I said, you know what? And what did my father say to you when you told him? Because my father asked him if he was any good at his job. So this poor guy I'd always worried about, you know, now I've just shown him. But, you know, I said, we need to just learn the lessons. We need to learn the lessons that were learned. And you know what his surgeon said? And the 6-month process, inquests are horrible. His surgeon sat at the table. He said, the lesson for me is, he said, your father's love for life. He fooled me. He said, if that's the right word, he said, I thought he was so much younger than he was. He said, what I realized was actually he had a very old body. And that body was at much more risk from surgery than perhaps I'd allowed for, because he said I was blown by his mind, his love for life. And so when we have a personal vision, you know, I kind of think, actually, that's a pretty good way to live our lives, isn't it? That we live in life. You know, my father never wanted to stop learning. He always wanted to learn. And that was our motto kind of to the coroner, was let the lessons be learned. We're not apportioning blame. We're not out to get anybody. We need to understand what went wrong. And there were things that went wrong, but there were some good lessons to be learned. But we did that in honor of him, and also that fitted with my own vision for my life about relationships being the most important thing. So does it make a difference? I hope that that very personal story really does, because it is also, yeah, I mean, that's 6 years ago now. I probably couldn't have told you that story 5 years ago. It would have been too painful. But it's also a lesson for all of us, I think, when we think about what do we want from relationships? How do we want to live our life? How do we want to be remembered? Who inspires you, and how might that inspire you to shape your story can be really key. And certainly, so my dad's probably one of the most influential people in my life, and continues to be long after his earthly life has ended. So what are those things? You know, think about those things. I hope that encourages you. And I'm going to end on I've got one more slide I want to show you, and I think it kind of sums it up for me, which is, here we go. It always seems to delay. When you let go, you create space for something better. I guess that's my line for you. Yeah, sure. Creating personal vision, you might have to let go of some stuff. And you're definitely going to have to create space. But when you create that space, you've got room for something better. And that is certainly my hope for you. That's my encouragement for you, is that there is opportunity. If you've never done it before, and maybe you think, well, you know, we never know, do we, how long or short our lives will be. But when we live them intentionally with purpose and vision, believe me, that doesn't really matter how long or short it is, but you are walking intentionally, and that is a happy and successful place to be. So I think Andrew's put the links in for various things for me. This is Richard Fox's book. So for Andrew and I, our great mentor and friend, Creating a Purposeful Life. If I have 2 or 3 copies to give away, that's Richard's legacy to me, was a box of his books. And drop me a line. I'll be very happy to post you one. Here are my various ways of contacting me. I think the links are there as well, so you can screenshot this if that's helpful. Very happy to have offline discussion too, if that's helpful. So here we go. Any final thoughts, questions, anything you want to say? Feel free. You've got just kind of 2 minutes left. Is everybody going to start somewhere? Give me a thumbs up. You're going to start somewhere, hopefully. Yes. Oh, good on you, Tracy. Thank you, Nina. Nina, you and I have talked about this already. Fantastic. Great to see some of you, to hear some of you. I hope you've been inspired, and please do join other things. So Andrew's got a whole list of stuff coming out. Eva's doing some really exciting stuff tomorrow. And Andrea, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at your Happy and Successful Summit.
Thank you, Rachel. That's, you know, I love you. I love Richard. Always well. Big inspiration, big friend, big mentor. And it's always, always, always inspiring to talk to you.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
This was excellent. Thank you.
Well, go well, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Be aware that you'll be more alert to people who aren't living intentionally or beginning with the end in mind. I just warn you of that. And if you need to start anywhere other than your energy givers, just think about how do you want to feel on Friday and live this week with that outcome in mind.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you,
very
Rachel.
much.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, everyone.
Nice to see you, Steve.
Thanks,
Yeah, you too,
Rachel.
Rachel. Sorry, I was having a bit of technical difficulty at the start, so
Oh, I love your
apologise.
commitment to just walking the corridors. I saw it.
I got you in the end.
You did. Well done. Fantastic. Nice to see you.
Thanks. We'll talk again. Take
Yeah,
care,
we'll
Rachel.
do. Take care.
Bye-bye.
There we go.